Welcome back to Legends in My Own Mind. I am your host, Zero Hype Guy Smith. I haven't introduced. I think that's the first time. I think I introduced myself once with Danny. I always forget to introduce myself.
Oh,
every time, but it's not. But it's okay because it's not about me. It's about they're at my channel. They know who I am. They know, and we're here with this week's legend, starting on a new month of legendary conversations. And I'm sitting here with the biggest, the baddest, the meanest, the Windy City Pro, New Midwest Original. Doesn't quite rhyme, but
no, it doesn't. But I mean, I like.
Did you have any other? I don't remember any other. Did you have monikers? I don't remember you having many monikers.
No. Whenever, man, I really.
You really didn't.
No, it wasn't until like 2004 whenever I was like, dude, I'm going to call myself the next icon.
The next icon. Next icon.
You remember I had those T-shirts that said next icon, Sage Ramsey?
Did they call you that? I don't remember them calling you that.
I had the T-shirts, but nobody ever called me that. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think so.
No, that was a legend in my own mind at that time.
Legend in your own mind. You're an icon in your own mind.
No, I was the next. That it still hasn't panned out, but I'm working on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next icon, Sage Ramsey.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks for asking me. This is awesome.
Man, I'm having such a great time doing these interviews, man. I mean, I'm just glad everybody's having fun doing them. I'm getting some pretty positive feedback. You know, a lot of people tell me they're loving the series. So, thank you guys for that. Everybody's sticking with us. Hopefully, we'll keep going because I got a lot of legends in my mind that I want to talk to. But I'm excited for this one. This is one I got to be around for a lot, you know. Like I remember you came in and we'll get to that. I'm not telling the story, but like by the time you came into me, you still really hadn't, like, you had training.
Yes.
But you still really hadn't done anything. Like you really came up with us. You're a New Midwest guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're not going to start there. We will get to that.
All right.
Let's start back at the beginning. Good old down home boy.
Down home boy. Down home, Verdant, Thayer, Illinois.
When did you first become a wrestling fan? Where'd that start?
My story's going to be a lot like your guys' stories way back in the day. You know, you were young and you liked it and you started watching on TV and next thing you know, boom. But at the same time, I didn't know what wrestling was until I was going through my mom and dad's they had this curio cabinet thing and you'd pull out these drawers. And the drawer was always super heavy. You could barely get the thing open.
Hold on now, this is a family-friendly show.
Did I cuss?
No.
Okay, I was going to say.
Talking about pulling your parents' drawers open.
Man.
I don't know what you're going to find. I'm kidding. Also, it's super not a family-friendly show. I'm kidding.
Good. Okay, because it's really hard for me not to cuss. So
this is an adult show for adults. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
But this drawer was just always chocked full of pictures.
Okay.
And it was always my goal. Like, as soon as I knew there was pictures in there, I wanted to see what was in there. But I was so young, and this drawer was always so heavy. It took me years just to get the drawer open to find out what was in there.
Okay.
And then I'm probably about 7 years old, and I'm pulling these drawers out. Sorry. And going through all these pictures, and it's like my mom and dad's wedding, my dad's old cars, and this and that. And I come across all these old, really horrible pictures, blurry, super blurry, from St. Louis Wrestling and Wrestling at the Chase.
Wow.
And I'm like, what is this? And here's this big dude, and my dad's literally got a picture of Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan in the ring because he was working security down there while he was at school at Bailey Tech, I believe is what it was called in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And he was working security for the event, and he was there, and this was way back before he was with my mom, so they were still in this, and I was just going through, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, well, that's wrestling. You don't even know about that. And I didn't. I mean, I had Ninja Turtles and stuff like that going on. And so I'm going through these pictures, and then finally, there was one night we were at my grandpa's house, and when we walked down to the bar, because my grandpa wasn't there. He was just down at the bar. Surprise. But we go down there, and they've got wrestling on the TV.
Yeah. My
grandpa's sitting at his bar stool, and my dad pulls up his bar stool, and he sits me next to him, and they got wrestling going on. I get my root beer. They get their beers.
His root beer.
It was a root beer. I was only 7. I mean, come on.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't until like 13.
Oh, okay.
I got the first one.
Well, yeah,
but we'll get to that one later, maybe. No, that's a family thing. Never mind.
Family business.
But that's whenever I first saw wrestling on TV, and it to me, it just like it caught me, and I was watching.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was until maybe a few years later, whenever I was over at my grandparents' house, and it was Saturday morning, cartoons was on, and then the cartoons would get over, and you flip through the channels, and boom, there was wrestling, and I was like, Grandma, I want to watch this. And I'm not even sure how old I was at that point, maybe 9, 10, and it was it had to have been like WWE or WWF All Stars or Superstars or whatever it was in the mornings, and I watched that. And WCW also had a program on,
right?
And I watched both of those, and it was just every weekend at my grandma's house I'd be watching those, and that's what got me hooked. And then they started buying me the action figures, and here we are.
Once you're into something, you're into it. Do you remember what was playing at the bar?
They were doing old like I guess they were called reruns, but I don't know that they were reruns back in the day. Okay. So they were.
Sure they were.
It was a Saturday night, so they were playing something Saturday night, and I think it was WWF.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure. It was just
no memories of seeing Dusty Rhodes coming off the top. I don't think Dusty Rhodes ever came off the top, but
not
Dusty
really.
Rhodes dropping that elbow.
I just remember seeing the older school wrestling, and it was really cool seeing it at the bar. And normally you'd go there and there would be a ball game on or something, and there was no ball game that night. It was wrestling.
I don't have many bar memories from when I was 7, so I'll take your word on that one.
You didn't live life, sir. But I think that's where I first got hooked, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay. So when did you decide to do it? Like how'd that come?
That didn't come along until I was 15 years old.
Okay. I mean, aside from like 15, I mean, when we're young, we all want to do it. I want to be Hulk Hogan when I grow up, like aside from that, like when was it like?
Okay,
maybe this is a real thing, maybe
I remember saying at 15 or 6, I was almost 16, that I wanted to be a wrestler. I was like, this looks cool, I want to do it. And it was just like, it was in my mind, but it wasn't there because I still had high school and I was still in sports.
No high school wrestling or anything?
They didn't offer it around here.
Yeah.
So it was just like you had football and you had basketball, and that was it.
Yeah.
And, track.
Right.
Which I did track, and I also did...
You did track? What track did you do?
I did shot put and discus.
Okay, I was going to say, you ain't never
No,
run.
I didn't run.
You ain't never run 3 steps in your life, bro.
Only between the ropes, and that's barely.
Hold on, I've seen your matches.
And you've made me run during those matches.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That might be a thing.
2004, you made me run my ass off.
Well.
You made me earn that shit.
You could do it then.
Yeah. Don't ask me to do it now.
All right.
Actually, you can, eventually.
Eventually. All right.
But, where
15.
15.
Start thinking about it.
I said that I had wanted to be a wrestler, and I don't remember what year I was in high school or I was in school, but I was starting my football, and it got to where I was almost 16, almost ready to get my license.
Right.
Knee injury. I got clipped by a 4 foot tall dude. and just tore everything, blew my knee completely out. Had to have reconstructive surgery right before I was supposed to get my license, right before I was supposed to start driving. So I wasn't even able to get my driving permit until I was like 17.
That sucks.
Yeah. So then after that, my surgery, my recovery, I was trying to come back to football, and I did. I did play another year, and because I missed the whole next season.
Right.
And then I played the year after that. And then it was getting closer to my senior year, and I still had in my mind that I wanted to wrestle. And my dad was all like, well, I'll give you two choices. With your knee, you've got two choices. It's either football or we sign you up and we try and find you a wrestling school. And I was like, wrestling school?
Yeah.
What do we got?
Right.
And that's whenever my dad, and he was a concert promoter, so he knew people. And he would always go to these different conventions.
Right.
And one year at the Crown Plaza in Springfield, it was like 98, Windy City Pro Wrestling had a wrestling ring set up there, and there was all these other like vendors and stuff trying to sell their product. And that's when my dad met Sam DeCiro and all that, and he was like, okay, this is what we want to do. And my dad's like, you'll never believe who I found and who I met. There's a wrestling school in Chicago. And I'm like, what? So we started going over and trying to figure out how we were going to make that work. Because at that time, just to sign up, it was $2,000.
Yeah.
And to pay the full year tuition, it was like almost $3,000.
It was a year tuition, not for like schooling tuition.
Well, it was $2,000 on sign up, and then you could do like $45 a month after that. And my dad just paid for the whole year.
Okay.
So we did that, and finally got everything settled to where I was there from 99 right almost into 2000, 2001 or something like that. And then after that, and I went up there every weekend via train. And if you people have ever rode a train to Chicago, it is.
I've done that before. I like it. I think it's a fun trip.
I mean, it's a fun trip, but every weekend you're leaving on a Friday night and then coming back on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so aggravating because you get there and then it's just nonstop. You get dropped off at the train station, and then you take a crazy cab. And where Windy City was located, it was on the north side of Chicago from the train station on Cicero Boulevard or something like that. So you're taking this big old turnpike, and these cabbies are nuts. You're sitting in the back seat in the middle going like this the whole time.
Right.
And it was crazy, but I loved it. It was just so much fun, except for like the first week up there.
Okay.
That was like Hell Week in football. It was ridiculous. All the new trainees and stuff, because they ran their gym out of the same building that they ran their shows in.
Right.
So they had this big 20-foot ring set up in there, bolted to the floor. And it's all set up like a TV studio, but it's also all training. So it's just like they take all the chairs out, put the mats on the floor. You got the ring and you got the mats. You got a weight room in the back divided with a curtain. And that's also their entryway. Yeah. It was really cool on their setup, but it was just so crazy because you would get there and the first thing you'd do is, go get changed. You'd have 45 minutes on the weights, and then you'd go out and you would do your calisthenics, your push-ups, your jumping jacks, all this stuff, sit-ups. Then it was a mile run. And if it was too cold out, because it's Chicago, it was a mile run around the ring, which took forever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was half mile down the street and a half mile back. Not so bad, but still, traffic, everything else, it's crazy.
Man, yeah. But like moving across, I don't know. I don't run, and I'm not gonna run. But like I just know to walk or ride a bike or something like that. To get out and do something, like to get out and walk a half a mile away and walk half a mile back is so much different mentally than like if to come in and do 10,000 laps around the ring or whatever it takes to get to your mile.
Yeah, it was.
That's.
It was crazy, and then you did all this before you even got in the ring. So by then you're just like you're exhausted, and your first weekend, this is what you're doing every day before you get in the ring, and then you've only got an hour in the ring to learn everything. So that's why it took so long to learn. Yeah. And me being only there 2 days every week.
Yeah.
So it was just like frustrating, but it was worth it because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just pain, man. I remember coming home on that train just going, and that train was so rough. You're just hitting every bump. I'm like, this is it worth it? But yeah, that's the beginning right there in the Chicago and the Windy City.
Yeah. So you go through your training. What was your first match? Your first match with them? With Windy City?
First match was with them. They called it like a training show type thing.
Okay.
But we were outside, and it was a little fair type deal.
Okay.
In Sandwich, Illinois.
I don't know.
Yeah. And then after that, it was the big Battle of the Belts in 2000, the 3-ring, 120-man battle royal, where I first met some of the New Midwest guys.
Right, so a bunch of New Midwest guys went up for that. I did not.
Yeah, you weren't there, but
that was I think that happened my first or second week with New Midwest, like when I had started.
Of 2000.
April? Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure it was April of 2000.
I don't think so. Maybe. I was pretty sure. Maybe they did that right before I started. So I started in May, and I thought they were doing that like I thought I remembered all them going to do that, and it was like my first week and kind of being like, oh, man.
Well, I'm pretty sure I got the article right there. I'm pretty sure it was in April.
Okay.
But
then they must have just done it.
Yeah, don't quote me on it completely. I mean, maybe we can go back and edit that.
No, it doesn't matter. Super doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's in the past.
All right, so what happens from there? When do you leave there? Why do you leave there? I mean, it's just not...
I left there initially because I'd been in a car wreck and I hurt my neck pretty bad.
Okay.
That's young and stupid. Down here hanging out with one of my buddies, and we're out in his pickup truck jumping ditches like idiots. And we hit a ditch too hard, and we're in this little Nissan, and I went up in the air and compacted my neck.
Cool.
So I fractured one of my bones in my neck and didn't even realize it.
Right.
And is what I had done is I had done that, and I was in pain and stuff, but didn't really realize it. And then I was doing something else, and it just boom, it hit me. And then next thing I know, I'm in a C-collar for 17 and a half months.
Wow.
That was really rough too, because I was told I was never going to work and wrestle again and this and that, and I was like, really? I'm only like 18, 19.
Yeah.
That's some shit.
Right.
And then that was my only real addiction came from that, and that was after being on Vicodin for 17 and a half months. I was so used to taking it for so long that I was just taking it. Yeah. And it was just I didn't even realize I was just still taking it, and I was already doing better because I was in rehab and physical therapy and there's a difference between the rehab and the physical therapy.
Yes.
Because the rehab, they go in and they massage you. The physical therapy, they stretch you and make you start doing the weights and shit. Mm-hmm. And then they do the head exercises where you're using the weights. Mm-hmm. And that was the most painful thing ever. Yeah.
They didn't do any kind of surgery, right?
No, they didn't.
Right. Okay.
Because they were able to correct it in time. And they had me in the collar for so long that it had made it to where the fracture never was a complete break.
Right.
But they were always worried that another impact like that might do it. But so far so good.
So far so good.
I mean, that's 20 years ago.
Right.
Still alive, still doing it.
There you go.
But yeah, that set me back pretty bad, and I was very discouraged. Wasn't sure if I was going to come back, and my dad had ran into somebody, and I don't know if I can name drop without people being all like, "Oh, who'd your dad run into?" Okay, pretty sure my dad ran into Real World Jeremy.
Okay.
And that was at Best Buy.
Okay.
And my dad was wearing a Windy City Pro Wrestling hat, and Jeremy had noticed it.
Yep.
And I think it was Jeremy and Duvall that were both working there at the same time.
Sounds right. There's a bunch of people.
It seemed like there was a lot of people.
Yeah, I feel like a bunch of several of the New Midwest guys ran through there in that time, but That sounds right, probably for the time period.
And that's whenever I first got the invite from him to go to. I came to the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through one practice with you guys.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you were there.
I was there.
You might have been.
I was there.
Okay.
I remember that night.
I remember Scotty Cash shooting on me, something fierce, but it was fun. And just watching his little squirmy ass with me, and I was just like, okay, this is cool. And then he did the shoot pin on me really quick, and I was like, you little shit. But that was my first experience with you guys, and I was just like, okay, I'm never going back to Windy City.
Yeah.
Because I had the open invite to go back. Then my dad was like, well, if you're not going back, I'm not going to pay him any more money.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad was still paying through this whole neck ordeal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This whole time.
So like 17 months.
Yeah.
Dad's paying them for you to
sit at home.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he was at that point, like he had already did the initial 3,000.
Yeah.
So we were on the $45 a month.
Right.
But he was still for 17 and a half months paying $45
Yeah.
a month.
For nothing.
Which racks up.
Yeah.
And, oh no, I was still getting free t-shirts.
Oh, good.
That was about it. And
45. It's not free. It's $45.
yeah, it's $45 t-shirt. But yeah.
Maybe. Did you get one a month?
Oh no.
Okay. So
I think that's why I've only got like one left.
Okay.
And it doesn't even fit my big ass anymore. It's just kind of a memento, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that, I lost track of you guys because you guys had moved again.
Yep.
And me being down here in Thayer, I was all like, I didn't know you guys personally,
Mm-hmm.
so I wasn't sure how to get back in touch with you guys until you and Scotty come into Gadzooks.
Yeah.
And well, really, the rest is history from there because you guys got me the New Midwest, and at that point, you guys were back behind Walmart.
Yep.
Off of Veterans.
Right. So let me.
That was way before I was even Sage Ramsey because in Windy City I was the Outcast.
The Outcast.
Yeah, that was my first name in wrestling. Woo! I've
like,
only had two. That's it.
That's
the
it.
Outcast and Sage Ramsey. That's it.
So let me jump in a little bit because I remember that because I remember the first night you were there. First night you came in. We were still in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you how long I'd been there at that point. I mean, a few months. I was pretty well, like, not established. I don't know. Like, I knew everybody. I was settled by then. So it had to have been a little while. And then we jumped a couple buildings that didn't really well. We had jumped to the Stockyard building, which anybody who doesn't know doesn't mean anything to everybody else. Everybody who knows will remember the Stockyard building. And that was a great setup, but that was where we got in trouble. They kicked us out because
Illinois Times.
the Illinois Times article. The Illinois Times did an article on us, said we were burning trash in barrels just to stay warm, which was not true. We never did that.
I heard that was a joke that they took seriously.
I don't think it was even that. I don't remember anybody joking about it. It was just because they were there a lot. You know, like they didn't just come in one time and interview us. Like they hung around for a week or so, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In and out, watching training, doing, talking to us. They were just trying to make it sound gritty and look at these guys, they burn trash just to stay warm because they love you know what I mean. It was just trying to sensationalize it a little bit.
Okay, yeah. That ended up going the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they can't, and the owners came in and were like, you guys are burning, you can't do that. And they came in and threw a big fit and ended up kicking us out. Then there was another building that never got off the ground. We were in there for a little bit. We did a couple trainings, the ice house, but the building leaked, or the roof leaked real bad, so we never got going there. And we finally got into there was a warehouse behind Walmart.
Yep.
And we finally got into that warehouse. We got a little established. But then that's when they started talking about running like a real show. And I was pretty set and pretty entrenched. Like I moved into the inner circle by then, but I knew that I knew that we had trained ourselves. Like we had moved from like Justin and Rob, who had started it. They had gone and gotten training and come back and taught us what they learned, right? But it had been like I knew we had moved so far into like kind of training ourselves. Like we'd had a couple guys, we'd had Les Thatcher in, and we'd had Pat Tanaka, some guy, Shark Boy. We had some experienced guys come through and train us.
Yep.
So I knew we were on the right path. But there was just something. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna reset this.
I was actually at the theater when you guys had Pat Tanaka there, I think. You guys had somebody come into the theater.
We had a couple people.
And the dude was talking and smoking the whole fucking time.
Talking and smoking?
Yeah, he took so many smoke breaks. I thought it was Tanaka.
I don't know. You sure it wasn't Justin?
No, it wasn't Justin.
I don't remember. Pat Tanaka was only there for 3 days, and everybody had to pay like $70 for him to be there.
I remember I went and watched that.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, so when at New Midwest, we'd gotten into this place in Walmart, behind Walmart, and when we started talking about doing like a real show, I knew that was when I was like, I don't know, and I remembered you being around, and like I knew I wanted you to come because I wanted to wrestle with somebody who had been trained somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
The New Midwest guys were we were so localized and such like an echo chamber. We were all training with each other. We were all working the same. And it wasn't a bad thing, but I knew we needed some other elements to come in and have that in the mix. So I was like, Scott told me one night, he was like, guess who I ran into at Gadzooks? And I was like, he's like, that Troy kid that went to Windy City. And I was like, is that Gadzooks? we need to go see him.
I was wondering how that really went because Scott was all like, oh yeah, that was all me. And then I was like, Jaron was involved at some point here. I know that.
Yeah. No, I was the one. I was like, you know what, we need more than this. Because I knew, I hadn't gotten out. I hadn't left Springfield at all. I'd gone. We did one. Some of the guys did a show down in St. Louis, and I went to that. We had some of the Windy City guys in. Like I knew there was other wrestling out there. I knew there was other ways to do it, and I knew we needed more than just the New Midwest echo chamber cycle that we had created. I knew we needed to mix it up, and so as soon as I found out like you were around, it was like, okay, we gotta go get him, bring him in.
I was recruited. I knew it.
But you came in, trained with us.
Yes.
So what are your first New Midwest memories?
Probably all the practice sessions, because like we'd go in there and you were head trainer at that point.
No.
Or well, you
I
were
was
taking the reins.
I was a trainer. Well, I mean,
I always trained with you. It seemed like
maybe it might have been just the night you came in on. But I mean, me and Chad, because there's like the 5 owners. The ones that were really involved in training were like Rob and Justin and Jeremy, and then there was like me and Chad, who were not owners, but
trainers.
we were at training all the time. That was the thing. Whether we were trainers or not, we were the ones that were there every single night.
Yeah, I saw you guys more than I saw probably anybody else, except for like when the owners would come in and they would hang out in the office. You got a little bit on yourself there, sir.
I got it, thanks.
You need a double for that PBR?
I got it, thanks. It's good.
It's good. It's good, I swear.
It's so tasty once it hits your lips. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, I would say coming to that little warehouse where we were, and I always had fun going in there and training with you guys because it was so different from Windy City because you guys were serious, but not. I don't want this to sound wrong, but not as serious as them, but still trying to be just as good and as serious as them. And I like that because it was so much more of a family friendly and friend atmosphere as compared to up there. You're just like a robot, and it's just like you're going through a thing to where there was more one-on-one time available. There was I don't know, the word family always just comes up, and it just felt right, being down there with you guys. And I thought everything flowed a lot better, and I loved it. It was different, and that's why I chose not to go back to Windy City, because I found you guys, and I was like, I can make this work with these guys because they're not bad.
Right.
And I'm still pretty goddamn green, so let's get in here and see what we can do,
Yeah.
And it blew up from there because, as you said, you guys were getting ready to start doing shows. And we'd run practice matches and practice shows, per se, right there. Although we were always running from the Bread Monster because we never knew what was going to happen.
What? The Bread Monster?
One of my memories.
I don't remember that.
You remember that pond that was out back of that building?
Yes.
Rob.
Rob threw that loaf of bread in that pond.
Yes, he's like, don't go back there. The damn Bread Monster will get you. And I'm like, what is the Bread Monster? And for the longest time, I didn't know about it. Nobody had told me.
I think that loaf of bread, had it come out of his? It came out of somewhere. Somebody had left it. It was in his car. Like when he pulled that loaf of bread out, it was already not bread. it was becoming a creature, and he took it out back and just tossed it in that pond. Now that you say that, I do remember that. Oh man.
That was one of my funnest memories of that place. Besides the working and the wrestling and the training and the crash pads always being there, and me finally being able to try different stuff off the ring for a big guy. I mean, who would have thought that I'd be standing on a ring apron trying to do a moonsault off the ring apron onto a crash pad? So that was a whole new experience for me. And we didn't have that opportunity up there at Windy City.
Right.
They didn't have crash pads.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was cool because I'm learning a whole different element and different ways of doing things. Because you could learn one way, and it might be the right way, but somebody's right way. But at the same time, there's always ways to make things different, and that's why I really liked what I was doing there with you guys, because everybody was learning from everybody else, and it was no, do it this way, it's the way it's got to be. No, it was simpler, and people learned a lot easier doing it that way, and that's why I loved it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. So what happened next? You saw the light. Came to the land of milk and honey that was New Midwest.
Yes.
And so you weren't Sage Ramsey yet.
No.
How'd you become Sage Ramsey? Where'd that name come from?
I was sitting in the office there in the front part of the training center, and I was talking to Jeremy. You might have been in there, and maybe Chad and Justin. And I was talking to those guys, and they're like, oh, well, you got to come up with a name. And I was like, well, I was always the Outcast. And they're like, well, that's dumb. And I'm like, all right. And I went home, and I sat with my dad, and me and him sitting in the office, and we're going through different names and stuff. I was like, let's just search up weird names. And Dad just pulls up a list of hundreds of different names. And right off the bat, I liked the last name Ramsey.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, whatever. Let's go with that. And I had the Ramsey part, and then I got the print off of the first names, and at first it was going to be Sean Ramsey, because I like Shawn Michaels.
Okay.
And I took it to you guys, and I was like, it's going to be either Sean or Sage. What do you guys think? And they're like, Sage. Well, that's different. And somebody there thought it just clicked, and that was it. It just stuck, and it was Sage Ramsey because it was unique.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going with it. I don't care. I like it, and I've made it work, and it's been the same thing for all these years. So Obviously, something happened and
Right.
it was right.
Yeah.
And it felt right from the first time I heard the two words put together. So that's it. Because I mean, here's my real name, Troy Jerkus. That ain't gonna be no wrestler. That ain't gonna be no wrestler. So yeah, Sage Ramsey just worked and it stuck. It was different, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I remember about
Right.
it. And then the next icon.
Well, that's a little ways down the road.
Yeah, ways.
So,
Yeah,
all right.
3 or 4 years down.
So now you're rolling. Got through.
Yep.
We got through training. We got through all of it. Now we're rolling. I mean, what happens next? What are your big?
Next,
What are milestones? What are the milestones of your wrestling career? Let's. Hit
I would
those.
say right after that, we are starting. We're getting ready for our first show.
Right.
And I'm not sure who found the building. I think it was Rob that had found the building from Christopher Lockus.
Well, I think Scott was the
Scott?
connection there. Yeah,
Scott was the connection there? Okay.
Scott knew the Christopher Loxes. I mean, he was kind of.
Had come to find out, my dad also knew them, which is the weirdest thing. But Dad's all like, "Hey, I knew those guys too." But apparently, they know everybody.
Yeah, the Christopher Loxes. They're a big family, and people know them. So yeah,
So
it's not that surprising.
here we go, and we're getting all geared up for Soccer World and New Midwest Wrestling's debut show, First Blood, and I was super excited. I was just like, oh. And like I was like, am I on the show? What's going on? Am I on this show?
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, I was. There was the big heavyweight tournament.
The tournament, yeah.
I was thrown into that mix, and my first opponent was Michael Shard. We had one screw up in that match on my part. And I was just like, oh, I missed one spot, and I like almost tripped over Shard. I was so angry. But I mean, it was good, and the anticipation for that show, and not knowing how big it was going to be.
Yeah.
Almost 500 fans.
Over 500.
Over 500?
Almost 600.
It was huge, and the coolest thing
That first show was enormous.
I was actually out in the garage earlier looking for this because I have a picture of me, one of the ticket stubs, and if you remember, Rob Miller gave us all $1 for our first paid show.
Yeah.
I still have that dollar.
Do you?
Yep.
I still have mine somewhere. Mine's in some of the like I didn't frame it or anything. It's in a
One of the brochure.
a photo album.
Okay.
Like an album.
Okay. Yeah, I did a picture of me and Michael Shard. I think I'm body slamming him.
Yeah.
And there's the ticket in between that and then the dollar bill at the bottom.
Yep.
And then I always had, I've still got the actual big book from the first show.
Yeah.
I think I have a lot of those little books too.
Yeah.
From the other shows because the big show and then they got a little bit smaller because I was all like, those were expensive.
Yeah. We went all out for that first show, man.
Yeah, we did.
And it worked out too. For a company really doing their first paid show, like that's big. 600 people, that's big.
Yeah, that was huge.
Especially in Springfield. Springfield's not a huge city. I think I have. We did those brochures for a lot of the show, like the programs.
Yeah.
For a lot of the shows, I used to have them all, and then at one point I was kind of like, I don't need all this. At some point it stopped being mementos and started being trash, and I was like, I don't need these. Threw a bunch of them away. I still have a few. I come across a few of them here every now and then. I'm like, oh, look at this. And I think I still have the big one from that first.
Yeah, that big one.
That big one was big and not. It was like had a nice cover and
it was a magazine size.
It was cool.
It was very cool.
It was cool.
Actually, mine's sitting out in the garage right now over by my truck.
Yeah.
Daniel found it up in the attic not too long ago.
That's
and
awesome.
He's like, look at this. And I was like, holy cow. Look at that. The old school logo with the Capitol with the barbed wire wrapped around it.
Yep. The barbed wire. Couldn't have a wrestling logo without barbed wire then. That was early 2000s still.
Yes, it was. That
Real
was
early. That was
2001.
2001? Yep.
2001 or 2000?
2001 sounds right.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's when Soccer World was. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's been a minute.
Here we go. It's been a while. It's early. It's early.
Over there.
Back then, I don't remember all that far. That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
All right, so first big show. What's your next milestone? Next big memory.
Next big memory. Probably. Man, this always like fogs me up. I'm pretty sure it was like my first big feud, and that was with Jason Wells.
Okay.
And I think at this point we had already moved to the USA Sports Center.
Probably.
And me and him had a good program. I mean, just back and forth with Dempsey in his corner and stuff. And actually, for my career, my biggest feud has actually been Dempsey.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, for the first 10 years, I think
Yeah.
it was my biggest feud was Dempsey.
Okay.
And even now and then, he's still a thorn on my side, but it's whatever. I've done beat him up too many times. I don't care. But
So PhD was actually the manager. For everybody who doesn't,
sorry.
remember, PhD was one of our manager characters in New Midwest.
yes.
So he was with Wells was with him. Wells and Shard, right?
Yeah, Wells and Shard. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was my first big feud, and which ended up developing into the tag team of me and Wells, because it ended with a mishap between him and PhD. The PhD cost him the match against me, and Wells was upset.
Yeah.
Because he got hit and I didn't.
Right.
And we ended up beating the hell out of Dempsey.
Yeah. I
Garbage
was gonna
can,
say, I
I would say,
remember
yeah.
my next big memory of you is that tag team, Sage and
Yep.
Wells.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Later on, we were named Maximum Destruction. I'm still really not sure where that
I don't
name
believe
came
that.
from.
I don't. Somebody was just saying that. I don't
Got
know,
it right
man.
there. We were wrestling tag team 2008.
I don't believe that. 2008? You guys are still a tag team in 2008?
We were a tag team again in 2008.
Again.
Yes.
Okay, maybe the second. See, I don't remember again. So maybe again.
Yeah.
Like when you guys were a tag team.
Yeah, the first time we were just Ramsey and Wells.
Right. That's what I remember.
Yeah, that was early 2000s because right after that, right after we had our first run and we did the crazy matches with SOB and we had Church of Ron.
Right.
We'd won the tag titles 2 or 3 times at that point, and then there was that crazy handcuff match. I wish I could say I'll never forget that match, but I can barely remember that match because I was knocked stupid. Thank you, Jacob the Apostle.
Wow.
That was a mishap. I don't know whose fault it was. I'm not throwing blame on anybody. All I know is I got tagged legit right on top of the melon with a pair of handcuffs and busted open to where at the end of the match I'm laid out and I was supposed to blade. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were doing the kayfabe thing or anything like that. Okay, well,
tell them the story, man.
I was laying there and I was super knocked out, unconscious, and LPC and Duvall come in the ring. I had no idea why they were in the ring.
Yeah.
I'm laying there still trying to blade. I'd had my glove off at this point because I had my blade. I'm going,
Yeah.
trying to get color and not even knowing what was going on, not knowing that I was pouring blood out of my head because I was busted open. Next thing I know, they're bringing like a towel in and wrapping my head in a towel and escorting me to the back, and I'm barely walking, and my mom's apparently like following me through the curtain and stuff because my mom always worried.
Right.
She still does to this day. She's just like, oh, is my baby boy gonna be all right? Not her baby boy by no means. That'd be Daniel's the youngest one. He should be the baby boy, but
you're all her baby.
yeah, this is fact. I love you, Mom. But she was so worried, and I'm backstage, and I'm sitting there, and I remember Rob talking to me, and Rob's looking at my head going, you might need some stitches or staples in the, huh? And I was still just goofy. They wouldn't let me drive home that night. Rob that night actually super glued my head shut, so I didn't go to the hospital.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it was a day later. My mom's telling me all this.
Rob did that for a few guys.
Yeah.
Rob was the best, worst EMT we ever had.
Yes. he was pretty good. And yeah, that's that memory. And then not too long after that, me and Wells went our separate ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever you guys put me in the heavyweight title picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever I started feuding with, not really feuding, it was because me and Toga, we were both face.
Yeah.
And we were both trying to get to that championship. So there was the matches between me and Toga leading up to that. And then it always got interrupted to where there was 2 number 1 contenders whenever it come to the heavyweight title.
Right.
And the show where I ended up winning the heavyweight title, I had to wrestle 2 matches, and so did Toga. Oh, no.
So did Arson.
Well, Arson.
It was our WrestleMania 10 ripoff.
Yeah.
Because you wrestled Billy Morgan in the first match. Toga wrestled Tom Arson, and then you wrestled Tom Arson.
Yeah, and that was the real big milestone for me. That was an amazing night, start to finish. Long night, because Billy Morgan took me 15 minutes at least, and I was just backstage, and I've always been a bigger guy.
Right.
Let's be honest. And I sitting back there going, oh, round 2 fight. And I knew I was going against Tom Arson, this would be my first actual singles match against him, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I know I'd tagged with somebody against him before.
Okay.
And then going into this match with him one-on-one, I was going in injured already. Billy Morgan attacked me with a chair to the knee after the match.
Okay.
And immediately he just rushes me in the corner as soon as I get in the ring and just clips that knee and just starts working me over something fierce. I'm not sure how long that match went, probably 13 to 14 minutes, something like that. But it was so crazy because I'm out there and I've got the fans on both sides of the fence. Some are cheering and some are saying, if Sage wins, we'll riot. There was literally a sign in the audience held by Shard Mark and Lance. If Sage wins, we will riot. And I'm just like, wow, guys, thanks.
The Shard Mark. For everybody who doesn't know,
Yes.
Shard Mark was a fan. Tended towards. He was a regular fan of New Midwest. He liked most of the heels. Particularly, he liked Michael Shard, so that's why we call him Shard Mark.
Very much like Michael Shard. They had their own little group thing. You remember they hold the sign up, PWO or whatever it was? The Pimp World Order or something like that. Yeah.
Vaguely. I kind of remember that, but I don't remember what it was or anything.
Man, that was good. But, so at the end of the match is coming on, and it's Arson's got me worked up in the corner, gets me up there, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, this is really gonna happen. The crowd's all iffy. They're like, oh, Sage is about to die because it looks like a superplex about to come up.
Right.
And that's whenever I had blocked the superplex, scooped him up, and hit him with what was called the final fall.
Okay.
I don't even know how I come up with the name, but it's whatever, but it worked. Everybody taking it because it was always a big spin, and it was a back bump. It was simple, but it was
what the white noise is. What Sheamus does it and calls it that now.
Yeah, and somebody else had done it before, and they called it the Kryptonite Crunch, except they did it all on one side.
Oh, that was that Finley? Finley did it for a little while too, I think.
I think he did too.
Yeah.
And except mine was somebody I'd seen it the first time. It was packaged over one shoulder.
Yep.
And that was called the Kryptonite Crunch or something.
Okay.
More indie maybe, I'm not sure. And it was just basically a sit down. And I was like, well, that'd be cool if I could do that across the back and do a big spin out with the leg.
Out.
And I did that, and I hadn't seen anybody do it like that. So I was like, I'm going with that. And then years later, after I stopped using the damn thing, I see Sheamus starting to do it, but except he doesn't really throw him out that far. He just kind of sits down with it.
Drops.
And I was like, okay, that's close enough, but damn it. WWE stopped stealing our shit. They've been stealing it for years.
Something like that.
So, yeah, I hit that from the top rope. Well, actually, I was standing on the middle rope, but crowd pops, some boo. It was a crazy night. Duvall comes out with the brand new championship because I was a bigger guy and that belt was small.
Right.
And I was like, I want a bigger belt. So I made a bigger belt.
So you made a bigger belt.
Yeah. And for the record, I made a lot of the New Midwest belts. If you remember the originals, and then I started building all the other ones, and I built all the belts from early on, damn near to the end of it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think, I built the last one too, which Ben's now has.
Does he have it?
Yeah, hanging on his wall in his garage. But there's a replica of the first one I won back in 04.
Okay.
My dad made me that plaque after I won it, and I was like, oh, all right. That's cool as hell. Because I love Superman, and those were extra plates, so they're not the original plates.
Yeah.
That original belt, I have no idea what happened to it. It's been used and reused so many times for so many different things. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But,
so how'd that feel, coming all that way?
It was really good. It was so many ways rewarding, and it was like I felt accomplished and finally accepted, because for a little bit there in New Midwest, I didn't feel like I really belonged.
Yeah.
It was just weird. I was like the outsider kid from Chicago trying to come down here and make a name for myself. And for the longest time, I didn't think I was going to go anywhere in the Midwest until I got the tag belts. And then it was just like, okay, well, maybe I do have a chance to do something here. And then for the longest time, there was like, oh, I don't know. Because I kept asking Rob, I was like, hey, am I ever going to get up where and that? And they're like, well, we don't know yet. We'll just have to see how you progress and this and that. And I'm like, okay.
Well, that's the thing. I have to point out, like, we were all young.
Yeah.
And we were all young. We were in our early 20s and, full of piss and vinegar, as they say. And, like everybody who wasn't, like, in the title picture in the first couple months was like, this is bullshit. Am I ever going to, when's going to be my time? You know what I mean? Like
there was a lot of aggression like that. Mm-hmm. Even over the Central Illinois title.
Yeah. That was the thing. Any belt, we had the three belts. We had the main belt, we had the tag belts, and we had the Central Illinois belts.
Yes.
And which was like a secondary middle tier belt. And for sure, every one of us that weren't, like it was, like we were like, again. All right. Thanks. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like, it really was this weird sort of, and it wasn't weird. It's just, you got a bunch of guys, a lot of testosterone.
Oh yeah.
And we were a little, like, even though we were all families, like we were all family, within the family we had started to click up a little bit, and there was kind of inner circles,
and I was not in that inner circle or clique,
right? You know what I mean? But there was just, I mean, even within the inner circle, when if I had a title match, Chad was like, why does he always get the title match? Like I had one title match, Chad. I lost to Rob, Chad, but it's still like, when's it gonna be my time? When's Chad's time? And I was the same way. I was like, I mean, we were hungry like that, and it was just we didn't understand. And when at that age, you don't have that like foresight. It's like you don't think about, if we're all the champ this month. Mm-hmm. Who's going to be champ next month? You know what I mean? Like, so looking back, it was like we all wanted that all right away, and we were trying to build. We had no concept of like building a show and building how to make the roster strong at that point, which is, some guys got to have a run, and then we got to cycle through, and some guy, but that run is not. Well, you had 2 title matches. He's over. It's my turn. Like we got to build. And
wait a minute, I had 3.
Well,
oh wait. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was 3.
Yeah. So
it was good. I mean, even the short time I had it, it was. I had good matches through all that. I mean, I think you were my first opponent, and that match was absolutely awesome. I love that match. I still go back and watch that.
Hated that match.
You lie. You lie.
I didn't hate the match. I was so mad that night. That was one of those.
Because you had the job to me. That's what you're mad.
I was not mad. I was not mad about that. Losing has never been a problem for me.
I know.
Like that was never something, I don't know. That was just never something that stuck in me. What I had the problem with was that was one of those nights where we were on last. We were the main event, and that show it was 10:30 before our match was on, and I was so mad because I knew the crowd was wore out. I knew we could probably get a little bit out of them. But at the time, my thing was not I need to win. My thing was like I need all the time I want. I need to be able to have the match I want. And I was not happy if my match was under 15 minutes. And I knew we needed to go out there and deliver a main event match in under
we only had
10. I mean, that match was, 9 minutes? 9 and change, I think?
Yeah.
And it's a fine match. I like the match. I remember, that's what I remember that night. I was so mad. And, several of the guys who did not need to be having 20-minute matches.
Oh, we're having those, yeah.
We're having 20-minute matches, and that show was so long, and I'm sitting there watching the time tick by, watching the crowd leave, so, like, by the time we got to that match, I was hot.
We were back there, me and you, because we talked about the match a little bit and gone over a few things, but then you're just like, what time is it? We're only on this match, and we're just going, okay, what? We still got 3 matches before us.
Yep, I was so mad. That night, oddly, man, like that night was very formative for me as a wrestler. I took away from that night that night is the reason I to this day do not like being in the main event, do not like going on last, do not want to be the champion at any given place because I don't like wrestling in the final match.
Great, I ruined it for him.
Well, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. And I've gone on and I've had lots of title runs and lots of main events. like I'm still there to do it, but that is like a thing that sticks with me. Anytime somebody's like, "Hey, we need you to be our champ," and I'm like, "All right," Well, most guys are like, "Really? I get to be the champ?" And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want. Thank you. I'm honored that you would ask, but that's not my preferred spot. I'm also as a creative force, I'm very conscious of how I structure the shows and try to be very like this match needs to be this match needs to be that. I try to make it very clear what I want from a show.
You're very conscious about your shows. And because your format is great. I love working your shows.
Well, thank you. But part that night is part that night. It comes from that night because we didn't have that thing. We didn't have that.
We didn't.
We didn't have that kind of leadership. We didn't have that kind. It was just kind of like, here's a show. You got this match, main event. And guys just went out there and they did whatever. And that we were all the same. We all wanted to have these 20-minute barn burners, and best match on the card stuff.
I wanted best match on the card, but I wanted, 10 to 12.
Yeah. Well,
never liked going long.
It made me start thinking about how do we make this show watchable. Not that show wasn't watchable, but like how do we make the show a package? The show is supposed to be a show, not a bunch of matches.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we make it a show? And like that was part of I started thinking about it that night because, man, that was such a it was such a formative experience for me. So that was a big night for me. Your first a big night for both of us. Your first title match and changed the way I looked at wrestling for up until today,
Works for me.
Any other big defenses? Any other matches you were real happy with from that run?
Actually, whenever I lost the belt, I really liked the way that we did that.
Okay.
Whenever I dropped to Billy Morgan.
Remind me.
It was another issue with PhD.
Okay.
He had come in and distracted me. He'd actually physically grabbed my mom out of the audience at this point.
Ooh, vaguely remember that.
And Billy Morgan was in the ring with a chair.
Okay.
Oh, no. I'd gotten the chair from PhD or something, and I went in the ring with the chair, and I'd walked in, and Billy Morgan super kicked that chair so hard into my face and the bump and everything. If you go back and you watch the video, it just looks smooth, fluid motion. It just looked like I ate the hell out of that chair. And the chair went flying out the ring. Billy Morgan pinned me. Boom, new champion. And then he went on and I dropped it not long after that to Scotty Cash. I'm pretty sure. And a ladder match at the fairgrounds or something like that.
Maybe.
But Billy Morgan,
we'll save that for the Scotty Cash.
But I really enjoyed, because I had the title defenses and they were all good. They were fun, but I liked the way that we ended it, and Billy Morgan ended up getting the belt because it was different.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, if I'm going to go out, I want to go out with a bang. And literally, I went out with a friggin' bang to the face, and I don't think it could have played out better. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed that, and I was always like, all right, cool, I'll get a rematch one day. I'll get a rematch one day.
Still waiting.
Still waiting for that rematch.
So what was it like? So I'm always interested. I tell all the young guys and old guys, anybody who wants to hear my opinion, when you take the belt, it's a responsibility, mm-hmm. right? It's not your shot. It's not your time to shine. It's your responsibility. And I tell people, like, you only get one match as champ. Every other match as champ is for the other guy. Mm-hmm. Like it's because it's their shot. You're the champ. It's their shot. It's their time to shine. It's their moment to look like a contender. They could have been a contender. like that's their moment. And yes. You only get one moment. Your moment, 2 moments. Because it's your moment when you get handed that belt. However you celebrate your title win, that's your moment.
Yes.
But then the only other moment you get is when you lose the belt. Like that's your match, that's your time, that is your way to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that's the match that's yours. When you drop that belt, that's the match that's yours. I'm always interested to hear what it's like to drop. To lose a title. So, like, when you lost that title, what was that like? Where were you? How did you feel?
I remember feeling good about the way I lost it. Mm-hmm. I remember also kind of being upset that I had to drop it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it was just like I already knew what they were doing and where they were going with it. And Billy Morgan was what they were calling a transition champion.
Yeah.
Because me and Scotty were both faces.
Yeah.
And they didn't want me and Scotty to go against each other. So Billy Morgan, they threw him in there. And it was more of a surprise to everybody, but not so much of a surprise because of the way it had been booked. Mm-hmm. Me and Billy Morgan way back a few months earlier, going one-on-one.
Right.
The night that I had won it, and him almost beating me. But I don't remember how that match ended. I think it was disqualification. But that was a minute ago.
Yeah, that was a long time. I don't remember my finish from those shows. I don't remember yours.
Yeah, and I didn't know at the time that April would be whenever I'd be dropping it, mm-hmm. for sure, because that was all of the bookers and right. whatever. And then they told me about it. And I was like, okay, how are we doing it? And that was the first thing I wanted to know, was how it was being done. And when they told me, I was like, okay, Billy Morgan. Oh, okay, yeah. It's gonna work. Granted, I was just like, I got to do this already. 4 fucking months, but angry a little bit, but at the same time, it felt right, and yeah. it was really cool because I liked the way it went down. Billy Morgan, great competitor, and I really liked the way the match ended, and knowing that he was going to go on and like drop it a month later or whatever, I was just like, I wasn't the shortest run. So, I mean, it was good, and that just opened up more doors for me because I went on to become RCW champion mm-hmm. a couple months later. So I was just like, oh, well, shit, now I'm traveling and getting belts everywhere. And then I was just racking them up. So I was like, whatever. Yeah. This is fun. And then I win a belt over the phone. We'll get into that. Or we won't, because that's just weird. But, I got no complaints about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end this episode. We came from little Troy on the bar stool with his daddy and his grandpa, and came all the way to the man losing his first big championship. Is it? I think, man, for wrestlers, I think that within the business, I don't think we put enough emphasis on losing the championships. I think that is a definitive role, and much more definitive than winning it. You know what I mean?
Oh, look at what people are used to seeing on TV.
Well, yeah. Well,
it's just boom, gone.
Yeah. But it's see, the thing is, like, to win a belt, and that looks like the highlight, and we get so focused on that because we're American and we're winners, and everybody wants to be a winner, and everybody wants to be Michael Jordan. I mean, the best thing we can do as wrestlers is elevate somebody else and elevate the next guy. And that's what we do when you pass a belt on, you're elevating that next guy. I think it is much more should mean much more and should be much more satisfying to us to have won a belt, had a run, and be able to pass it on and transfer that momentum to somebody else. Like, it's not winning the belt is not an endpoint. You know what I mean? It's that whole run should be encapsulated. And because dropping the belt is the end of that run, like that's the accomplishment. Your whole run is the accomplishment, not just the win. So that's my belief. I think it's a great place to stop because we got 3 more weeks.
Oh, wow.
3 more weeks with Sage Ramsey. Man, thanks for joining me. Next week we're going to be back and we're going to be talking about. I want to know how you developed as a wrestler. So we'll cover some more of your career. Maybe we'll take a step back, talk about some big lessons, kind of how you figured out how to do this thing.
Wait, I figured it out?